practice or are you running a business? Valuation is the ultimate KPI.
Hey there, it's Mike Langford. Welcome to another episode of the Modern Financial Advisor Podcast, brought to you by Trulytics by Envestnet. This week on the show, I have Matt Spielman, founder and head coach of Inflection Point Partners, with me to talk, well, coaching stuff and principles that you can use as a financial advisor, as an executive at a wealth management firm, not only to improve your own career aspirations and grow your business and use these things in your own life to achieve your life goals, but to take some of these principles and then use them to better serve your clients. I asked Matt to be on the show because, there's a fine line or some gray area between being a financial advisor and being a coach, right? Like, we think financial advice and advising on financial things may be distinct from being a coach, but I'm not 100% sure clients feel the same way. They look at you as their number one trusted advisor. They are coming to you and asking for guidance to achieve those life goals. Their money is a tool to achieve those life goals. And so adopting a bit of a coach's mindset to augment some of the traditional financial advisory stuff that you do might be beneficial. And Matt has brought the thunder. You're really going to love all the advice and guidance that he's bringing. And he actually brought some good visuals too. And he's got some takeaways, some free takeaways that you can use on your own. Really, really good stuff. Now, also huge props to Matt before we get on with the show for being just an amazingly good sport. Head coach who's a good sport. Who'd have thought? We had some serious technical issues. This was the second time Matt and I recorded this episode of the show. And as you'll see, my technical issues persisted. Now, they have since been solved, but what a champ Matt is for sticking with it. We recorded the first time, had to do it over. And even in this one, you're going to see that my video freezes a few different times. My audio is fine, but my video freezes a few different times. So what we're going to try to do is, in those times where I'm frozen, we'll either make Matt bigger or kind of put something over my face, some sort of visual there that doesn't make me have the, that weird face that happens when your video freezes. Anyway, I think you're going to love this episode. That type of weirdness aside, really, really good stuff. As they say, the show must go on when you record a podcast. Okay. Now, before we get to the conversation with Matt, please do make sure you swing by Trulytics.com and click that little contact form and explore the site. Some amazing stuff there. Things are developing pretty rapidly since the acquisition. I love the things that we're doing over there at Trulytics, so make sure you check that out. Also, if you haven't done so already, please do subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon, the YouTubes, or wherever you like to get your podcast jam on. And if you have a question or a suggestion for a guest or a topic for the show, hit us up, podcast@Trulytics.com. We would love to hear from you. Okay, let's get to the conversation with Matt Spielman, head coach. Let's do it. Matt Spielman, so wonderful to see you this morning. Welcome back to the Modern Financial Advisor Podcast.
I feel like I just saw you.
It's amazing. I say welcome back. And for those who are our regular listeners / watchers, viewers of the show, you're like, wait a minute, I've never seen Matt on the show. Well, here's the deal. Matt and I recorded an episode of the show with much trial and tribulation a week and a half or two ago. And we had all sorts of technical difficulties on my end and with our solution that we use to record these types of things. And then I'm like, hey, let's just switch to Zoom. We'll record there. Zoom never fails. User error on Mike Langford's behalf. We record on Zoom, and I made the mistake of not, there's a feature that we have where I can record separate videos for each one of us. And so that we can edit a little bit better and so forth. And we can record separate tracks. I forgot to check either one of those darn boxes. And so what ends up happening, I just get the one video with one track. And I'm like, oh man, we're just not going to have a good end product. So user error. So thank you so very much, Matt, for coming back. I appreciate you.
I'm really looking forward to diving in and recreating that first conversation that we had.
Yeah, let's hope it's even better, right? We've had
for sure.
We've hung out together. This is gonna be awesome. All right, so well, listen, we'll do this thing just as if it never happened, but we never had any technical issues. So before we get started, and I'm going to try to recreate this as good as possible. In your background there, Matt, for
Yes.
the listeners in the background of Matt, he has two stadium seats. So you imagine if you went to a ball game and there's stadium seats. They're red in color, and for those who you're watching the show, obviously you know they're red in color. So throughout the show, I want you to be noodling. Where did those stadium seats come from? What stadium? So it's going to be a good guess. They are Major League Baseball, correct?
Correct. And I'll even make it a little bit easier. It's a National League team.
All right. So you've got 16, I think is there
I
32
think it's
teams?
15 or 16. Yeah,
Yeah, so
it's
like
either
you got
30 or
16 teams to
32. I've
guess
lost
from. So
track.
there
Yeah,
you go.
yeah,
Okay, so while you're listening or watching, let your brain wonder, and we will do the big reveal at the end.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
anyways, let's jump right in. So when Jill, your booking assistant, reached out to pitch you as a guest for the show, something really jumped out to me in her email that I'm like, I do want to talk to Matt about this. She mentioned that you help professionals who are trying to figure out what is next in their career. And that
Mm,
concept of what's next is something that we focus a lot on in this show, right? So Truelytics, the company that we produce a show for, is a solution for advisor transition management. And Truelytics was recently acquired by Envestnet, a huge, large company that serves wealth management firms globally. And, you know, in this industry, there's a lot of what's next going on. So
okay.
let's kick things off here. What are some signs that an advisor is at an inflection point, or maybe at an inflection point in his or her career?
Yeah. So what we often hear is, and the person listening out there, they or watching, they know there may be sort of a gnawing sense of either their heart's not in it that day or not really looking forward to that week, and they're you know what I think of? I'm sort of thinking in my mind. I'm playing that commercial over in my head of the Dunkin' Donuts guy when I was growing
I
up. I
love that
watched
guy.
this commercial and sort of alarm goes off. It's blaringly loud, and he turns and he says, "Time to make the donuts. Time to make the donuts. Time to make the donuts." And if there's several days in a row, and even weeks, we begin to get that sensation of, you know what? I think something needs to change.
Mm,
However, however, what stops people from engaging that was a statement, but even you can make it in the form of a question, what needs to change? What stops the progress forward is this idea that it needs to be a 180-degree change, or I
mm,
need to just stop what I'm doing and I need to go get another job. When in fact, that's often not the reality. That tweaks, edits, small changes made smartly and to the right things can have a wildly positive impact on one's day, on one's week, and just kind of the job
mm,
overall. So we often sort of focus on those small things and maybe reimagine, reframe. Maybe there's another assignment or a new type of
mm.
client or something a course that we can take, something that can invigorate the energy to push away that gnawing sense of feeling, that gnawing feeling or sense that we may have, and maybe quiet the Dunkin' Donuts guy.
By the way, so I'm a native New Englander. I live here in Austin, Texas now, as most of our audience knows, but and you know, but like growing up in the Boston area where Dunkin' Donuts, originated, it's really kind of a funny thing, to remember those old commercials. Speaking of Dunkin' Donuts, by the way, their like oldest store, like the original Dunkin' Donuts store, is just getting refurbished. It still exists. I didn't even know that the original Dunkin'
That's
Donuts exists. I saw a little news
that's
story come
pretty
across my
cool.
feed.
That's pretty
Uh,
cool. Just to follow on to the point a bit, one of the things that we do with folks who are working is they keep there's a template or form. It's called a sources and drains of energy. So
okay,
imagine, and we can send over this tool
sure.
that somebody can look at and use and sort of keep it by your desk. And as you go through the day on a specific task that you're doing, is it giving you energy or is it taking energy away?
Mm,
And when you interact with people and you sort of feel like, oh man, that was a really invigorating meeting. Okay, so who are you meeting with? You were meeting with somebody else, so that's an interesting sign. What about it was sort of with either a source of energy or a drain of energy? what is the type of environment you were in when you either felt a drain or a source of energy? Was the lack of commute, or even some people enjoy their commute? It might be, uh, a short walk or a couple minutes, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And keep that over the course of a week or two, and then begin to look at the information. When did I feel most energized? When did I enjoy what I was doing most? And we get down to specific tasks, because sometimes, like, man, how are things going to work? Oh man, it's just a mess. Well, having a document where it's, kind of a T, where you have sources and drains of energy, and it might be 5, 6, or 7 pages over the course of a couple of weeks. You kind of look at that and say, huh, there are some trends here. There are some
Yeah.
themes. And maybe if I do a little bit more of this and a little, fewer of these things, then, at this sort of sense of, I think something needs to change, we'll have a pretty good idea of what that is.
Yeah. I love that. It's interesting that you say that. So one of the things we've discovered in talking to many advisors and people who are involved in this concept of advisor transition management, and and many of the transitions that we get into discussions about is the M&A process, where the advisor might be selling all or a portion of his or her business, or another advisor is obviously thinking about acquiring a business. And one of the things that's come to light is some advisors are looking to exactly your point, get off the things that are sapping their energy, right? So some
Yeah.
advisors hate the sales process. I do not want to go out and,
Yeah.
and try to sell
Yeah.
and bring on new clients. But when I have clients, I love working with those clients. They're amazing people. I love the relationships and so forth. Or vice versa. Hey, listen, I love going out and the hunting. I love trying to find new clients. But like
Yeah.
then there's a whole bunch
Yeah.
of like drudgery. This the
Yeah.
operational aspects of my business sap my strength. And of course, there's lots of different variables in there. So I think it's such an important point that you talk about, of recognizing that it might not be this wholesale, like I need to upend my life and dramatically change everything. It could just be, why don't you make a couple of tweaks, right?
And in fact, that's one of the best things that's one of the things that gets in the way.
Okay.
That is an insurmountable mountain. I'm not even going to try. So why even entertain the question or even that statement?
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. And I also love the fact that you talked about kind of like small changes, right? Can have big impacts over
Yeah.
time. I'm always reminded of this,
Yeah.
and of course, everybody always reminds me, like, hey, PEDs played a role in this, but Lance Armstrong, who Tour de France
Yeah.
winner, and now
Yeah.
have that has been stripped. But one of the things that when he was on Team Discovery, and they did this big documentary on it, and they were the first team. So it wasn't just all Lance, but they were the first team to start looking at everything and looking at making small changes, like to the bicycle, like stiffening the frame. If we
Right.
can shave a couple of ounces here or there on the bike, if we can adjust how we are, they were the first team to get in the wind tunnel and start looking at the aerodynamics of how they rode in the
Yeah.
saddle and so forth. And what they said was like, hey, listen, we might get a fraction of a second here, a fraction of a second here, but over a 2,000-mile race, right? And kind of, if you're thinking about your career, we're talking a 2,000-mile race length, right? This isn't a sprint, right? This is a long life you're living there. Over time, these lead to huge, huge things. So over the course of a Tour de France, it might be winning by a couple of minutes at the end, right? Versus, but it was all about focusing on those seconds here and there and so forth. I
Well,
love
and
that.
I think our careers are that 2,200 mile, if not even
Yeah,
longer, and small changes, a few ounces
yeah,
here, 15 minutes of sleep here, one extra sales call here, taking a lunch, engaging with other folks and learning who are in the industry once a week there. Like, and I think the other thing that you said, which was really, really important, is everybody's a little bit different, and what ignites energy is different than in yourself than it might be in other people. So you mentioned some people really love to hunt. Other people really don't want to hunt. They want to feed and water and
mm,
manage. Other people love launching sort of new initiatives. Others like, hey, it's been working. I kind of want to stick to this. So it's identifying kind of who you are.
yeah.
And there are ways that we can get at that also.
That's awesome. Yeah, I 100% agree.
Yeah.
You know, a little while back, and I think this kind of feeds into exactly what we are just talking about. A little while back, I had Kieran Bowl from Price Metrics by McKinsey on the show, and I think it was like last year sometime. And one of the things that he and his team uncovered by studying 70,000 financial advisors, they have direct data feeds, so they can actually look into
Yeah.
like what's happening in the business of these advisors, was that most advisors are not growing their business organically, meaning they're not bringing in new clients and new assets, right? And in fact, 75% of all growth that's happened over the last decade or so for financial advisors has come from market growth, not new clients. And I found that incredibly
Mhm.
interesting. And then the cause of this plateauing, if you will, is almost always attributed to capacity. Like maybe the advisor just run out of space. Like, he or she just, I
Right.
don't have any more hours in the day. Here I am. And the other one is complacency, maybe, right? We get, hey man, I'm making $400,000 a year. Life's pretty good. I play a lot of golf. I spend a lot of time with my family. There's no need to bring on new stuff. And this is a challenge for wealth management firms. They're like, hey, listen, we've got this advisor population. We want to grow. We need advisors who are actively growing their business. And as the saying goes, if you're not growing, you're shrinking, right? Because client attrition will happen at some point in time. Your clients will get to a
Yeah.
certain age, and they'll start drawing down those assets and not growing them through contributions and so forth. So, I guess the big question here is, how do you help advisors? I want to kind of start diving into the meat here. How do you help advisors break out of their rut, right? So they're in, maybe they have this inflection point, or maybe they haven't even recognized that they probably should have an inflection point. Right? How do you
Yeah.
help advisors break out of that capacity or complacency zone and get on the growth path once again?
Right. So you're sort of over the one of the things that a coaching partnership and a trained coach does not do
Mm,
is overlay his or her sort of value system on that particular individual.
okay.
Implied in what it is that you're saying, that growth is the mandate
Okay.
and growth is the charter and what that person should be doing. Maybe, maybe things are working quite well for that particular advisor. So we go in and open mind and just to get at how the other person is feeling about, where he or she is and what that person values, where that person came from, what are the things they might be looking forward to do, just really what is coming from within that particular
Yeah.
person. And one of the things that we do just to get an idea of where we are is for the individual to complete this something called a purpose
Okay.
puzzle. So for the viewers or for the listeners, imagine a 3 by 3 jigsaw puzzle. So it comprises a square. And for those, I think I can put it on screen here. So imagine that the 3 by 3 jigsaw puzzle, and on each one of the pieces, it has a different facet or piece using the jigsaw puzzle analogy here, metaphor
Hmm.
actually, um, is a different facet or piece that contributes to how you're feeling on a day to day basis. So career is one of them.
Mm,
Life partner, significant other is another one, friends, health, finances, physical environment, community, family, spirituality. And one of the things that we do, and I can send this over so your audience can download it
absolutely.
and work through it. One of the things that we do is go through and get a snapshot in time of where almost a present state of where is that person on a scale from 1 to 5, with 5 being, man, my health, I'm feeling really good about where I am. I'm sleeping well. I'm sort of, physically, I am where and it contributes in a meaningful way to how I'm feeling. And so that will be a 5, a 4 or 5 out of 5. And so we sort of go through this. It takes 3 to 5 minutes and it gets through. Then it invites the conversation of, okay, if this is today, where might we want to be tomorrow? And for those who are listening, I just clicked on
Mm,
tomorrow in quotation marks, and the colors and the numbers are at a different level. So, today and tomorrow, and we've chosen a couple of areas where we're going to make a concerted effort to improve and increase, that particular number. By doing this, a couple of things happen. One is we get a sense for what are the things that you really value, what matters to you. We may identify in the career bucket, the person went from maybe a 3 to a 4. So what does that look like? And, Mike, to your point, maybe it is growing by 10% the client. I don't know. It invites a discussion is what it does. But it's not coming from me. It's coming from the individual. Maybe it's more free time. Maybe it's fewer clients,
right.
actually, right? So it's your values, what it is that you want, and then we begin to set a goal around that. So what is it okay? You know what, Matt, after this sort of 10-15 minute discussion, I think I would like to add 10 clients to my kind of portfolio of activity and my roster of clients. And then we talk about, okay, well, what is, and then that gets into the game plan. What is the meaning behind that? Why is that important to you? And then we get into the specific, well, of course, the time horizon. By when might you want to do that? And what are the specific action items that work in service of that? And that begins to get into this game plan concept. And I'll stop sharing my screen now if I could
You
figure out
know,
how to do that.
I
There we go.
I love some of the core elements of what you just described there of like, hey, look, maybe growth isn't the most important thing for the advisor, right? Maybe that's not the thing they are thinking about, he or she is thinking about. And one of the things that just kind of came to mind as you were talking about this, I love the fact that you said, listen, not every advisor is going to have growth as their number one value in their life, right? And one of the things that pops in my mind is, we talk about this business, the financial advisory business, for many individual advisors as a lifestyle business. And sometimes that's used with a negative, almost like, it's a lifestyle business, right? And people, I know in the startup world, investors are like, I don't want to invest in a lifestyle business, right? Well, that makes sense. But for an advisor, that advisor I talked about before, who's maybe making $300,000 a year, and it's recurring revenue, lifestyle might be the reason why they do this. Like, hey, I am able to work a normal 30, 40 hour
Absolutely.
week. I get to golf. I get to travel a lot. There's no real emergencies, as rare as that's a financial advisor emergency. Like, so as a general rule, it's a great business. And so part of their goals, to your point, might be, hey, how do I have the best lifestyle business? Like, what is that? What does that look like? How do I make sure that I have my recurring revenue is very strong and not as susceptible to the markets, making sure that I am guarding against client attrition, asset attrition. Maybe I do have to occasionally have a plan for bringing on new clients so I don't shrink, right? I don't care if I grow by leaps and bounds, but I definitely don't want my business to go smaller. So I love this line of thinking here.
Well, I think that, people get caught up in, I talk a lot about this in the book. It's the chapter's entitled Should versus Could. We
Mm,
often get caught up in, hey, what should I do? Right? I should continue to grow. I should continue to travel and meet new people and develop new areas of the country, potentially even a new country.
mm,
But really, when I'd like to layer that over what is it that the individual
yeah.
values, right? And it's sort of getting back to that purpose puzzle and setting goals around that. And I encourage people to think about at an inflection point at any moment is, what could I do instead of what should I be
Yeah.
doing? Should is this exogenous force, and could sort of comes from within, reflecting what it is that that individual really wants in that moment, and maybe wants what something down the line.
Yeah. That's a really important point. And I think advisors, the really good ones, think the same way when they talk to their clients, right? Like, your financial life is a bunch of what can I do? A bunch of possibilities, right? And you've got a bunch of levers: how much you save, how long your runway is, how much risk you're willing to put those assets in, and so forth. All shape, you know, what you can do, right? What are the levels of possibilities? And you can kind of tinker with all those different things. So they're probably, the good ones are used to having that conversation with other people. And we were talking about having this conversation with the advisor.
With
Yeah.
ourselves. That's exactly right. Right. It's a very consultative, other person focused approach that they take with their clients about their objectives and what they may want to do in the future, where, when, with whom, what they want to put away for their grandchildren and stuff like that. Not what the advisor is saying, hey, I think you should do this. I think I should do this. Yeah. I mean, if there's a question asked of them, what their
Sure.
point of view is, they can provide it, but it's not layering over, let's say if I'm the advisor, what I think the person should do and what my values are and what. So it really needs to come from the other individual.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. I love it. It kind of leads me to like another, how to say it. Clarification isn't the right way phrase to say this, but like, I have this concept of coaching versus advising, and I want to dive in a little bit there. You describe yourself on the website for your book, the inflectionpointbook.com, and we'll make sure that's linked up for everybody in the show notes. You describe yourself as an executive and organizational coach. And so it got me thinking about our audience of financial advisors. Providing customized financial advice and guidance is incredibly valuable, obviously. But I wonder if advising clients differs from coaching, or do you just kind of think they're synonymous? Because I think a lot of advisors maybe think of themselves as coaches in a way, but I can't help but thinking like there might be a difference. So what are you thinking are the different skill sets for being a effective coach, and versus just an advisor?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question. I think there are a lot of misconceptions about even the word, either it's a noun or a verb, whether it's coach or to coach. But I think if we take a step back, I think a coach's charter is to help bring out the best in the individual, the team, the group, the organization, whatever that a team,
Mm.
right? A win, and people feeling good about themselves, and so they play better, they play looser, they play as a team, they work together, all that good stuff. So ultimately, to lead to wins, however it's defined. There are different ways to get there, and I think that's where the word sort of advising or coaching or mentoring and managing can get a little bit confusing. I will tell you what a trained coach has learned in the coaching programs today, which is where the world from whence I came. And this is the way I think about it. So you are the client, I'm the coach.
Mm.
Mike, you're the expert of your life. You're capable, you're whole, you're creative. I'm the coach. I'm the expert of the process, the coaching conversation, the science behind it. And it's through the power of our partnership that provides the kinetic energy to move that stagecoach forward. This is where the word coach came from, stagecoach. The point of origination, where we both get into the stagecoach together, and we point to, through the process, the desired point of destination. And it's the kinetic energy of that partnership that moves that stagecoach forward from today to tomorrow, however that time frame is identified. You are behind the steering wheel. Your hands are on the wheel. Your feet are on the pedals. I'm in the passenger seat, encouraging, supporting, reflecting you back to you, not what an advisor might do, even a doctor might do, where it's very prescriptive and telling the other person what to do,
Mm.
more directive than it is reflective. The science behind the coaching conversation, and it's sort of this empowerment, encouraging, support, reflective model, is that a eureka moment or an aha moment that you have through a conversation is much more value, almost infinitely more value, than if I give you a piece of paper that has the answer on it,
Yeah.
because that sort of came from outside. It wasn't made internally. So what we're trying to do as a coach is, and there are times I'm an advisor, there are times I'm a mentor, there are times when I tell somebody, hey, you actually should, I presented to boards
Yeah.
before. These are some of the things you may want to think about. However, it'll complement probably the or 70% of the conversation, which is, what has worked really well for you in the past? When you've spoken to a room full or a board of directors, and we sort of go by you and what is coming from you and how you like to do it, what has worked well for you, what hasn't worked well for you. And it's that anything that you feel inside is much more meaningful than if I give you the answer. It's a bit of that fish today. Here's the fish today let's work on you learning how to fish so you can eat for a lifetime. Very much more that approach. And people often use, consultants or experts. They come and they gather information. They say, this is what you should do. That's not a coach. A manager, more or less, is sort of telling people
Yeah.
what to do. However, really good managers also make it other person focused
Yeah.
too. So you can use the coaching approach in the managerial approach, and really actually every approach, whether you could be interacting with your husband or your wife or your children, and these types of understanding from where the other person is coming from and what that person values and what it is that they may want to accomplish. Um, that's often really, really effective. And what is really ineffective is a doctor. My brother-in-law is a cardiologist, and he often will tell people, you just had a heart attack, you should really stop smoking. Now, there are a lot of times when the person goes home and actually continues to smoke. In fact, that's the preponderance of the instances. So there's another approach that one can take, the coaching approach, which is, if we were to talk to that individual, begin to maybe get at how they're feeling now, and also project forward 3 to 5 years, and they start talking about their grandchildren and how they may want to be active with their grandchildren and how they may not have been so active with their parents and their grandparents. They sort of miss out on that. So we get in terms of what it is that drives them and what values they have, and maybe what mini steps or steps that they may want to take in order to bring about a change. Maybe it's cutting down on smoke. So it's,
Mm.
but they are determining it. That is much more likely to work than a doctor saying, go home and stop smoking.
You know, I love this conversation, by the way, because it echoes something. I had a conversation for another podcast that I host with Michael Lane. And Michael Lane is the head of iShares. And iShares is, just what everybody has iShares in their portfolio, right? It's like one of the large, BlackRock owns iShares. It's one of the largest asset management companies in the world. And one of the things that Michael was talking about was advisors need to get better at talking to their clients about their values, the things that are important
Mm,
to them, right? Because we are moving away with
yeah.
so a lot of financial advice, the things that we do in terms of managing assets is becoming more and more commoditized, right? Like everybody has access to the same stocks, bonds, mutual funds. Everybody's pricing is about the same for managing assets, and there has been some pricing compression. Prices have come down a little bit on that type of stuff. This point is like, listen, you can add way more value to your client if you start to understand what is important to that client. You start having the conversations you were just describing there, these coaching conversations about their life. So, and that's kind of like the root of why I asked this question is, hey, it might be time to start rethinking the full value of what you're bringing to your client. You might need to start coaching them and helping them because they know what they somewhere in their life, they know what they want out of life, right? And again, the whole reason why they're coming to you is make sure they can,
Mhm.
their finances support those types of things. But they're still they're going to be the ones who are driving, right? Like you're managing the money, and you're going to help guide them on certain things. But at a certain point in time, they're the ones who walk into the car dealership to buy the new car and make the car decision, or
Yeah,
where are they going to buy their vacation home, or all those types of
that's
things.
right. Well, yes, and if we stick with that metaphor, which I think is exactly the right one, I mentioned their hands are on the wheel, they're braking or putting their foot on the gas, and even beyond that, they're entering the coordinates of their GPS to take them where they want to go, not where I in the
Yeah.
passenger seat want them to go, or where the coordinates or the address that I entered into the GPS. But it also begs the need for, or the benefit of, I should say, entering the coordinates of where the person wants to go. Because oftentimes we don't just want to get in the car and drive around, especially where gas prices are today. We should a little bit of an intentionality to where we may want to, from the time we leave the driveway to where we want to go. It really helps to know what is that desired sort of endpoint that we want to
Mm,
bring about, and that's where the game plan and the goal setting really
yeah.
comes in.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. One thing that occurred to me as I thought about, uh, how does this work for an advisor, right? Is many advisors, in fact, I think the majority of advisors are solo advisors, right? I mean, many of them, I say this almost every single podcast I have, but most advisors got their start when they're called a stockbroker, right? Many of the advisors who are very successful today started 20, 30 years ago. They were called stockbrokers. They developed a book of business, and now maybe they've gone out on their own, and they either as a solo RIA, or they're an independent financial advisor working with an independent broker dealer or whatever. One of the consequences, if you will, potential negative consequences of that is they've been going alone, right? They're doing their own thing, right? They might not even have ever asked advice or for coaching on their how to run their business, right? They might have had some training earlier on, but
Yeah.
they've been just doing their own thing. How do you go about coaching people who have just been kind of rolling solo for so long? What's the approach that you take?
So maybe rolling solo has been perfectly
Mm,
fine for them. It comes out in what does that person want to bring
mm,
about? What is a goal that he or she wants to set? And then it may become very clear that there's some expertise, there's additional knowledge, or people that they may need to engage or talk to or incorporate or bring in to help bring them closer to realizing what it is that they want. So part of one of the things that we do is there's on a single page, there's a document, and there's four goals usually on that document. And one of it may be, maybe there's a certain amount of income that person wants to generate, or revenue for that particular business. Okay. Well, going at it, as Marshall Goldsmith sort of in his book called "What Got Us Here Won't Get Us There." Maybe that's part of the discussion. What got you here is not going to get you there. So what are the things we need to do in order to get there? But I don't go into the conversation saying, okay, well, you've been going at it alone, so you need to change that. No, that's if the goal of what that person wants to bring about is something that goes above and beyond what he or she has created, then yes, we invite other experts in, books maybe prescribed or articles maybe prescribed, or kind of going on a listening tour or speaking tour, just kind of engaging others and seeing what they're doing. But that is an action item that comes out of it's a cascade down from a goal that they may set for
Yeah,
themselves.
I love it. I love it because it's such an interesting thing when you think about somebody. To your point, like obviously they've been successful rolling solo, but it's a whole notion of like, all right, a lot of times when somebody's an independent solo person, they just they've never gotten comfortable asking for others or advice and guidance, right, or coaching in their professional lives. Yeah.
Right. But so, and maybe that's worked fine. There are friction points that arise when the desire to bring something maybe different about from where they are now necessitates a different
Mhm.
way of going around
Yeah.
about things. This is more of a how
Yeah.
question. It's how do I get there? And the assumption there is a little bit different
Yeah.
than here, where I
Well,
am now.
let's dive into some of the actionable stuff here because that's what we like to do on this show is make sure everybody walks away with like actually something they can do when they leave the show. So the core of your coaching methodology is something you call the game plan system.
Yes,
Obviously, I don't want you to give away all the secret sauce on the show, but let's dive in a little bit because I think this approach is something that will resonate with advisors. I think they'll kind of like start shaking their head. There's some familiarity here.
Mike, I want to give it away. So the tools are downloadable for free, and I want to make sure that the audience can do that. One of the tools is the purpose puzzle that people can go through in 5 minutes, literally, and get a snapshot of where they are now, of today, and then begin to think about what
Mm.
tomorrow may want to look like. But then, sort of closing that gap, I'll share with the audience another tool. So I'm going to share on screen the game. So yes, you mentioned game plan system or GPS, and the double entendre is intentional because it provides the coordinates or the direction from where you want to head from today to tomorrow. So what I've put on screen and for the listeners is a single page, and it's entitled Game Plan. And you put month, year, you put your initials in there in the event that you drop it on the floor, but perfectly happy to you could put your name in there. So it's 4 columns. And the top column is the goal, or the second to the top. There's a goal column, which is what is it that you want to bring about? What is that outcome that you want to work toward? That tomorrow point. By when? So the time horizon. So by the end of this year, in 12 months' time, in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. And then really think about what is the meaning and the consequence behind that goal. So getting back to that should versus could, if it's generating 20% more income, not because it sounds like something really nice to do, or my buddy said where I am in my stage in my career, I should be generating 20 or 25% more income. Okay, that's a reason. But let's say, okay, why is that important to you? What about that is important to you? And almost ask 2 or 3
Mm.
whys, and that's the consequence or the meaning in that. Below that are the action items. What are the specific or explicit action items that you can do in order to bring that goal about and to realize that goal, bring about that outcome that you want? And I'm showing on screen just an example of my game plan 2 years ago, so August of 2020. And I have one goal in the third column that says complete the manuscript, for example, by the end of 2020. And why is that important, right? Well, it represents the culmination of who I am and what I've created, and now I can offer to people, paves the way for more one-to-many opportunities, like what I'm having
Mm.
today, actually. And that's versus my one-on-one, which I love, but I want to impact even more people. All right, so what are the specific actions if we go down the column? Well, I'm going to complete the chapters by, et cetera, et cetera. People can read or sort of see that, and these are specific, and they work in service of the goal. Now, people may notice that there's an image on the screen And athletes have been using the power visualization for decades. Why not us? And when I thought about in my mind what it is that that goal means to me, I sort of found an image and I inserted it in there. And then there's a headline or a hashtag, sort of branding the goal at the very top, just sort of a quick take on the goal. And for me, it was kind of book
Mm.
it, kind of getting it done. Obviously, the little play on words there. So we work through this, we print it out, we laminate it. So think of a football coach on Saturday or Sunday for college and the NFL, respectively. And those are the coordinates or those are the plays to win that particular game that day against that particular opponent. Now, we don't create one every single week for us. I do have clients who create 2 or 3 a year, and they're micro goals, maybe 6 months or a year goals. And generally, they're working in service of something that may be sort of longer term. So in my mind, it's not written down here, but my mission is to ignite careers and energize lives and trigger whatever your version of the fist pump is. So all of these goals should actually be working in service of that mission that I have for
Mm.
myself. Does one need to have a mission sort of stated something? No, absolutely not. These are meaningful and consequential outcomes that you want to bring about that get you closer to that sort of future state that we were talking about a little bit earlier.
I love it. I love it. It's, being able to visualize a goal is so important, right? Like I think very often people just kind of keep things in their head, and think this is a goal I want to have, or maybe they just write down a couple of list of goals, almost like a to do list. But to your point, like to me, I'm a visual guy, right? I've got to see it, touch it, feel it, right? Yeah, I love it. I love it. So laminate that darn thing. With you.
There's something about the lamination where it makes it seemingly a little bit more permanent and
Yeah.
portable, durable. People hang it up, they carry it around. And the other piece, Mike, which is super, super important. So if that's sort of the what of the goal and what the document can look like, we have a whole approach in terms of the how. So once you're on
Mm,
your road, plugged in the coordinates and you're driving, there is an element of there are 8 things that I really encourage people to do that increase the chances that they'll be successful in this pursuit. One of which is, we're talking about building a team of experts. So there may be, okay, doubling or increasing my revenue by 25%. That would mean I need to bring on a partner, maybe, or I'm not really
mm,
sure actually how that works. So engaging others, getting expertise, partnership, can really be important. And I'll put up on screen a few other things that people can do. And again, happy to
yeah.
share this with everybody, and it's all available for free. But there are 8 different how to achieve elements here. One, I mentioned the build a team of experts. That laminated game plan, I'm talking about sharing your goals. So it creates accountability, transparency, and alignment. And if there's some personal things that are on that document, you can create 2 versions of it where it's sort of whether if you want to remove
Mm,
numbers, you can do that. Or if there's a personal item there, you can sort of tweak it. But handing it out to key stakeholders in your life, that could be colleagues at work, that could be a wife, a husband, your kids, and that's really important. Tapping into your strengths. And you mentioned earlier at the outset, some people love
mm,
hunting, some people really don't. Let's identify what that is. And I endeavor your audience. There's a free assessment that is awesome. It's called VIA, Values in Actions, or VIA, I think it's pronounced. And it's at
mm,
viacharacter.org. There's a free version of it. And what it does is it identifies there are 24 character traits that people have. And it ranks them from 1 to 24. And the top 5 are your signature strengths. And the science behind the assessment is that the more you use your signature strengths, the more fulfilled, happy, and energized you'll be, and likely the better job that you'll do. So this is tapping into who you are. And, these are things like kindness, love of learning, curiosity, leadership, humor. Some people really love to take classes. Okay, so what, in terms of gathering more information about relaunching their business, what might be a course that we could
mm.
take? And that's super exciting for that individual, less so for maybe somebody else. So we celebrate successes along the way. So oftentimes, if somebody has a marathon that they're looking to complete, if they complete a 5K, we actually should
Right.
honor that and honor that achievement. There should be a focus and prioritization Not 30 goals, not 20 goals, not 10, maybe not even 6 or 5, but 3 or 4 well chosen goals that fit on that
Yeah.
game plan have a wildly positive cascading effect across all those 9 facets or puzzle pieces in your life. Creating a suitable environment. If somebody wants to lose weight, throw away the Oreos. If they want to be a more present leader, open up the door and walk the floor. Phrase things in the affirmative. This is a simple one, but pretty powerful. And oftentimes people may say to me, maybe they have a goal around time and they say, man, I'm not going to go on social media today. Okay, well, that's good. Tell me what you are going to do today. The mind, it's a much more direct line between what you are going to do today versus the mind is like, not what you're not going to do. And it doesn't really think that way. And then there's this maniacal focus finally on win the day every day. So we may have a future oriented goal, but what are the 3 things that you can do today where you could either start, continue, or complete? Recognize we don't always complete stuff in a day that work in service of your goals and bringing about that outcome that you want. So this is the how to the achieve model, which builds upon, which we didn't go through today, but it's also in the
Sure.
documentation of the construct of the goal, not SMART goals, because I don't think that's a very smart construct. The achieve goal, the acronym achieve, I think is much more effective.
I love this. By the way, as you mentioned, we're gonna have this all linked up on the website and send people to your site as well. What I love about this is, and the stuff that Truelytics and the team deal with advisors is very often the advisors are overwhelmed, right? So, as an example, one of the things that many advisors don't have is a succession plan, and it's incredibly important to their business, right? Because you're helping people with their financial lives, and the value of your business is in the continuity of that business, like the continuation of these cash flows that are coming through these client relationships. These are not assets in the classic sense. It's not a factory, it's not machinery, right? There's no patents or whatever. It is just you own relationships with clients. So if I was thinking about potentially buying your business or giving you a loan for your business, letting you take some cash off the table or whatever, I need to see a succession plan. I need to know what happens. Like, should something bad happen to you, you pass away, or you just decide you're going to retire or whatever, what does that look like? But many advisors get overwhelmed by some of these because they feel so big and existential, these tasks. And the model you're talking about here really kind of makes it, well, achievable.
Yeah, so I think a key component in life is there's infinite noise, and we need to find the signals amid the noise. And I think this approach with the not 30 goals or not 20 goals, but even the 4 goals are those signals, those rocks, those pillars that we really need to feed water and pay attention to.
Absolutely love it. Well, Matt, this has been fantastic. Now, people are going to want to follow up with you, sure. So, what are the best ways for people to follow along with what you're doing, and then potentially reach out to you to talk more if they're interested in working with you?
Sure. So people can reach out to me on LinkedIn, and happy to connect with you, and we can start a conversation there. We also have a website for the book. It's called theinflectionpointsbook.com, theinflectionpointsbook.com. Go through a little bit about the book. One can purchase it there. One can also purchase it on Amazon. And there's also an opportunity just to download all the tools that we're talking to today. There's no commitment. Somebody doesn't have to buy the book to do it, but it's all the tools, the screenshots, what we shared today there, and somebody can go off and begin to use the purpose puzzle, begin to dive into the game plan, look at the goal setting model that's there, the achieve model, the what and the how to the achieve. And there's some other things as well there. The sources and drains of energy template is there. The hypothesis generation is there. So that's one way. And for the firm that we are running, and we have 12 coaches and we're adding more, it's called Inflection Point Partners, but it's Inflection Point Partners LLC.com. And there's more about our services and what we do and our amazing coaches, the carefully curated group of certified coaches that we have, people that I've trained with, trained from. We're all using the game plan system,
Yeah.
like the GPS that we're
Love
talking
it.
about
Love it.
today.
This is fantastic stuff. Now, before I let you go, we got to get to the reveal of what we teased at the beginning of the show. Where did those seats behind you come from?
Shea Stadium, where the Metropolitans played, I think from 64 I may have this wrong, to 2008 or 9 when they moved into the new stadium at Citi Field. What throws people off is that they're
Yeah.
red, as you pointed out, and that the Mets colors are sort of blue and orange for the Brooklyn Dodgers and the New York Giants from their birth in 1962. And there was a green section as well. And I acted a little bit late to secure the seats before they knocked down the stadium. So I
I
got the
am
red
so
ones.
envious of you having kind of your favorite teams seats, because as you and I chatted in our prep call. I'm a Celtics fan, right? And so we're a basketball household here. Both
Yeah,
my kids
yeah,
play and so forth.
yeah.
And I really wish I had some seats from the old Boston Garden. I'll bet you I can find them somewhere. I'm sure that somebody would be willing to sell theirs or in a estate
Okay.
sale or something like that. But I'm sure
Yeah,
the costs are pretty penny to get them. But that would be fantastic. So, do you ever just like sit in the seats?
yeah. I do, and for this particular purpose today,
Yeah,
no,
too
because
far
the
back. Yeah,
microphone, I would be distant, but they're very comfortable. I mean, they're meant for somebody to sit in
yeah,
them for 9 innings. Um, and it was nice. The Mets sent around an email saying that we're gonna. I think it was very reasonable. $1,100, $1,200, and the money went
that's
to the
nice.
Boys and Girls Club. And it was funny. I remember calling my wife at the time. This was back in 2010ish, 2009. And I said, "Oh, I have an opportunity to get the seats from Shea Stadium." And she said, "Great, have them delivered to your office." Not knowing where we'd necessarily put them in the house, but they've migrated back to the home studio, and they are very
I
comfortable, and
love
I
it. I
love
love it.
sitting
I
in
would
them.
put them in my game room upstairs, and I would like be watching games. Like I'm sitting
Yeah,
in the garden today watching this game. That's fantastic. I love it.
yeah,
I love it. Well, Matt, this
yeah.
has been fantastic. Thank you so much for your flexibility and your generosity with your time for coming back to the Modern Financial Advisor podcast. It's just great to have you back. This conversation, I think, is going to provide a lot of value for our audience, and hopefully comes back to you as well. Appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
I really appreciate the opportunity. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you very much for listening to and or watching this episode of the Modern Financial Advisor podcast. It's always fantastic to have you with us. Huge props to my man, Matt Spielman from Inflection Point Partners as well for coming on the show and putting up with my face freezing on his screen. It must have been interminable to just like sit there and go, I can hear Mike. He sounds great. What the heck is going on there? But we powered through. And hey, look, the show must go on. Anytime you're doing a podcast or a stage show or whatever it is, at some point in time, you just got to go on, even if some technical difficulties. Be ready to call an audible and just keep going. I do wish I knew my face was frozen when we were recording this, but I just couldn't put Matt through a third one of these bad boys. So, maybe just listen to this one and not watch it. But we did splice some things in there in post production so that it's not so terrible. Anyway, as always, if you like the show, please do give it a little like on wherever you're listening to it or watching it over on YouTube. And do us a favor, hit us up. We want to hear from you. Podcast@truelytics.com. Tell us who you'd like to have on the show or what topics you'd like to see us covered. We're always thrilled to hear from you. All right. That's all I have for you today. Hope you're staying safe and be nice to each other. We'll see you next time on the Modern Financial Advisor podcast. See ya. Bye.